and welcome to the Sanctuary, a safe space to speak from the heart. I'm your host, Israel, and my guest today is Elinor Crosby, and I'm going to read this because I love it. Punkhouse book jockey, belly dancer, fiber artist, fat activist, queer, bisexual, gender fluid, bookworm, sex positive, and a social media junkie. Thanks for coming to the Sanctuary today.
Well, thank you for having me. This is exciting.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. I'm having a nice slow Saturday morning, drinking tea, having a chat.
What are tea?
Tea? Today I'm drinking a black tea from World Tea House that I like. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There are people that are like really particular about their teas. I'm like, okay, it's just tea. But then I found out there's so many types of tea. I'm like, okay.
There are. I'm only a little particular about my tea.
Just
only
a little.
Just a little particular.
Do you have a favorite type of tea?
Well, I like most black teas. But I do now I prefer loose leaf, so that's why I tend to buy a lot from World Tea House. I don't buy a lot of tea at the grocery store anymore. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
So is World Tea House like that tea? Is it David's tea or Dave's tea?
No, it's actually a local independent company that a friend of mine started, and
nice.
It's organic and fair trade. And he and his partner often visit some of the farms that the tea is created on. And he has a tea mentor over in India. And it's a great little spot.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. So I'm gonna just go through the list, and the first one is podcast book jockey.
Yes.
What's up there?
Sure. Well, I'm a librarian, and it's a career I came to later in my life. And
wait, like in that library with the beautiful building, that one, is that the one you work in?
No, I work out in what is our Halifax Public Libraries Western District. So I work out in Spryfield, Clayton Park, Tantallon, and Hubbards. I have a district that I serve.
Oh, so when you don't just work in one place, you have to go. Oh, okay. All right.
I'm a traveling manager.
Okay. Well, yeah. So when you say Clayton Park, is that the Kenshin Goodman one? Is that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. That's the one closest to me. That's how.
Yeah. Yeah. It's closest to me too. So there, we're probably neighbors and we don't know it.
Right. So you said you got into that later in life. Why?
Yeah. Why? Well, I didn't figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up until I was about 35, I think.
Growing up, most people want to be something, even though it's unrealistic. Something, right? Did you want to be something growing up?
I wanted to be many things when I grew up.
Right.
I wanted to be many things. At various points, probably an astronaut, a veterinarian, an archaeologist. The one that was most consistent, however, was artist. So I've been drawing.
What are artists though? Oh, drawing. Okay.
Yeah, well, artists do a lot of different things. They make a lot of different kinds of art, right? So, you're an artist. You create film and podcast and conversation and safe spaces. So,
I guess.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah, take it. But yeah, so I think most consistently what I wanted to be was an artist, and it was encouraged. So that's kind of the one thread that has been consistent throughout my life. But it can be hard to make a life out of and a career and survive off of art, right? So I've had to do a lot of different things. Yeah.
So then, how did you now fall into the library thing? You become 35 and you're like, oh wait, I want to be a librarian.
Well, I was 35. I was working in wholesale. I had manager in my title, but that didn't stop me from having to carry 50-pound boxes of clothing from Bali up 3 flights of stairs.
No.
And yeah. So I was, it's a small business in Nova Scotia. Like you might have the title manager, but you're only getting paid like $14 an hour, and you're still hauling boxes and picking orders. So
Oh my God. You were a manager that was still hauling stuff
oh yeah.
upstairs.
Well, yeah, it's small business, so you have to do everything still.
Right.
But I also, because it was small business, I didn't have paid vacation. I didn't have paid sick time. I had no benefits. I wasn't building up a pension. And in my mid-30s, I kind of realized I had a little space to start thinking about actually having a future. And my future was looking bleak if that was kind of the industry that I stayed in.
Right.
I've always been, I'm a huge reader. I'm what we would call a library super user a lot of the time. And yeah, and the libraries were vital to my existence in my 20s because I was on social assistance. I built I built my resume on a library computer. I searched for jobs on library computers. I used the library to check out all the books I wanted to read and the music that I wanted to listen to, the DVDs that I wanted to see. So yeah, the library was a very important place to me when I was younger. So yeah, when I was like thinking about what I wanted to do, I knew some librarians and they were really cool people. And I was like, okay, well, I talked to one of my librarian friends and I was like, so I think I might want to do this. They persuaded me out of going to NSCC to do a library technician program because they were like, if you're going to do 2 years of school, you might as well do a master's because the technician pay kind of cap is where a librarian pay starts. And then, and I was just like, well, okay, that seems like a better investment. But it still took me another couple of years to decide to incur that much more student loan debt. So yeah. So I became a librarian because I wanted to give to other people what the library had given to me in my 20s.
Right.
So, yeah.
I think one of the coolest things is where, you have the little number on your key tag thing and you can go online and like download books,
Yeah.
like read. I think that's one of the coolest things. And old DVDs.
Yeah.
I like that too. So how long have you been in the library now?
Just a little over 8 years.
Oh wow. And how's it been?
It's been excellent. It's yeah, I don't know. I feel like I have a job finally that I can do some good in my community, and also like live, So it's fulfilling a couple of different needs there. Yeah.
And the belly dancing.
Oh yeah. Well, that's something I started doing in my 20s. I took just an hour long introductory workshop at like a summer festival when I was maybe 22 or 23. And I've always loved to dance, but as growing up, I was always like chubby, and I also lived in a very rural place, and I didn't have a lot of opportunities to take classes. Yeah, I took belly dance, and that's something that was accessible to me through Halifax Recreation. So I took that workshop and I was like, oh my God, the music is amazing. And my body seems to be good at moving in these patterns. And it felt really fantastic. It felt really good. So I started taking classes. I think within a year and a half, I was on stage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Was that like something when you started it with, was that where you saw yourself going, like actually performing?
I've been a performer most of my life. Yeah, that's been a part of my artistic expression. I think I come from a very musical family, so I actually grew up not realizing that I had a good singing voice because my Aunt June was the one who was the family singer. She was the voice, right? Mm-hmm. But most of our family parties would end up around a piano with all of us singing and making harmonies. And my elementary school, my Aunt June was our teacher, and we would do musicals every year. And so I participate in those and sing on stage. I took piano lessons for 14 years. I performed at recitals. Yeah, so
you can read those scribbles on the thing.
Yeah, I actually I started taking piano lessons when I was 6. I rolled up into my neighbor's house. Mrs. Smith was the farm, like, and Mr. and Mrs. Smith had the farm around the corner. Mrs. Smith was the local piano teacher, and we used to get our eggs from them because they had a farm.
Mm-hmm.
So we were over there picking up eggs one day, and I saw the piano through the doorway, and I think I might have been, it was the spring, and I might have just turned 6. And I'd been begging for piano lessons. Saw the piano, and I was like, "Oh, can I go play?" Because my mom was chatting, and I was bored. And Mrs. Smith was very indulgent. She's like, "Oh yes, go play, dear." And then I rolled up onto the piano and played the opening lines of The Entertainer. And Mrs. Smith apparently turned to my mother and said, "I don't usually start kids until they're 8. She can start this fall." So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Do you still play?
I can. I think because I started so early, I can still read music even though I haven't owned a piano in years. I can sit down with a sheet of music, and it's not going to sound great at first, but with a little bit of practice, I can play the piano.
Yeah, that's so cool. I guess when was the last time you played then?
Oh, it's probably the last time I visited my dad and stepmother down near Yarmouth, before they got rid of their piano.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's been a couple of years.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, no, my only knowledge is like I had this music teacher and he was harsh because he was and you had to learn those things and it just didn't make sense to me, you
Mm.
know. And apparently it's mathematical and I don't like maths, right? So
Hmm.
just like, what am I? No. And then you have to know what he want means. And then if it's on a certain line, you press a certain thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
no. But I'm really envious of people that can play musical instruments, right?
Yeah.
So that's cool. Okay, so you already had the recital
Yeah.
thing happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
That just kind of transferred to the belly
Hmm.
dancing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'd taken 1 year of jazz ballet, I think, when I was 12 and performed in that recital. So I guess it's always, uh, I'm used to demonstrating my skills, I guess. So when there was an opportunity to perform, I wanted to do it. So yeah, yeah. I know I've taught belly dance. I taught belly dance for around 20 years as well. So I've had lots of students who were intimidated by the fact that I share a lot of my personal story with my students to create safe space. But I always say, so this is how I did it, but this is not necessarily how you do it. Like, you're coming to my class to learn this skill for a lot of different reasons. It could be that you wanted to do something active and social with your friends. It could be that you need to learn how to be in your body, and this is always going to be something that you just do for yourself.
Mm,
So there's lots of different reasons why people, try new things.
mm.
My path isn't everybody's path, but yeah, that
Right,
was what I
right,
wanted to
right.
do. Well, I don't know. There's a really fantastic energy exchange when you perform
Mm,
in person that I really love. I feel like when I perform, I am like the best, brightest version of myself.
hmm.
And I just feel really, I feel almost divine in many ways. Like I've just got like all this energy, and I can give it to the audience, and the audience gives it back to me, and I can manipulate it and make them feel how I want them to feel with what I'm doing. So,
So for the 20 years you were teaching,
mhm.
was that like in a studio? Did you like how was that like in a studio or was that in some space you created or what?
I did 10 years, I taught 10 years through Halifax Recreation. Again, I love like Halifax Recreation, because their mandate is to provide all these opportunities at a lower cost for the community.
Hmm.
So yeah, I taught at St. Andrew's Recreation Center for 10 years, and I met so many amazing people that I still know to this day.
Hmm.
I can be anywhere in the city. I can be out and about. I could be in one of the libraries I work at. I can be, and then I will get some random person coming up and tell me that you were my belly dance teacher. I was just like, awesome. I hope you had a really good time in my class. Yeah, yeah.
Did you stop it? Do you still do it?
Yeah. So Well, the pandemic kind of stopped it for me.
Ah.
Yeah, so after I taught at St. Andrews, I taught at my friend's studio, Serpentine Studios, for well, anyway, 7 or 8 years, at least until last summer. We had to switch over to virtual classes, which I finished out the term that I was teaching, and on top of library work, which got more stressful and more complicated last year because of the pandemic,
Mm.
the additional work and energy it took to film a class, and then also try and engage with students over social media, and it wasn't very fulfilling. I don't know if it's super fulfilling for the students. It certainly wasn't fulfilling for me. It
Mm.
was more burdensome to me, and it was really um, hard to film a class to nobody, not have that energy exchange, um, not know how it's really landing because students aren't responding to my emails or aren't commenting or anything like that. So
Mm.
yeah, it was like creating in a vacuum a little bit. And a class is for people, and if I don't have people, then it doesn't feel like a class, I guess.
Right.
That's a thing for me.
Yeah. So, I was going to ask, these classes, were they live or on demand?
These were recorded, so I would record them
Oh, so
weekly
you
in
record and
post.
then send
Yeah,
it. Okay.
yeah. It might have been different if we'd been able to pivot immediately over to like live classes. It might have been a little different,
Mm.
but yeah, it
Okay.
was it
Well,
was too much. It was too much. So.
yeah. I guess, before I go into the other things you do, now would be a good time to talk about last year.
Mm,
Change a lot of things, I guess, for you.
hmm
You've mentioned the belly dancing
hmm
classes and also the library. But, like, with the library, though, what changed?
Well, I mean, we were closed for months. So I led one of the teams that um, figured out how to do virtual programming last summer. Um, so yeah, we had to figure a lot of stuff out. We had to learn how to use Zoom to safely run an online space for a program. It was a lot of work. And then there was also a lot of fear and of the unknown because we didn't know a lot about the pandemic last year. We were, so yeah, it just complicated everything so much. But in many ways, it also forced some very positive change on us.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, I think virtual programming adds another layer of accessibility to the work that the library does. And I see a lot of the programs that my colleagues and I work on as moving forward as a blended program now
Mm.
because yeah, some people thrive on that, like being in physical space together. Some people aren't able to do that. So having a virtual version of a program with things like closed captioning. Other people can also use third-party accessibility applications to support them. Yeah, so and also you don't have to worry about childcare if your kids are home from school and you can't, and they have to, they're there and you need to do something for yourself. You don't have to travel. It makes it a lot more convenient, I think, for a lot of folks.
Mm.
So I think it pushed us to have more options. So yeah, yeah.
Are you saying now, with the vaccines and the gradual reopening and stuff, if, I don't know, by Christmas, whatever,
Mm.
life is back to normal and we open up and stuff, do you think some of these programs will continue, or will it all go back to being live?
Oh, I think we'll continue to have some virtual programs because again, uh, winter is a time, for instance, when a lot of folks maybe struggle more to leave their houses, or it's more difficult for people. I know a lot of seniors won't come out to a library program in the wintertime after dark because they're scared of falling, and that adding the darkness to uncertain footing is just too much, right? So I can
Mm-hmm.
see that a lot of that I can see virtual programming continuing. I think it's a I think we would have eventually gotten there, but the pandemic pushed us there a lot more quickly. So yeah,
Yeah.
but all that said, that's very positive, but all of that is also a lot of work, so, and a lot of stress, and it's a lot of experimentation and having to do new things all the time, and changing all the time, and that can be a little tiring. So yeah.
Mm, mm, mm. And how do you cope with all that?
How do I well, what the other thing the pandemic taught me personally is that I kept my life way too busy. So the pandemic gave
Mm.
me a lot of forced downtime, and then I realized, oh, I don't have to hustle all the time. I don't have to be on the go all the time. And it allowed me time to reflect on like my life and my experiences. I finally had space in my life to start therapy, which was incredibly beneficial. Yeah, so yeah, yeah, that's kind of how it affected me personally. Is I realized I don't have to be out and doing something all the
Mm.
time. Like, you know what? I've got a job that occupies a lot of my waking hours right now.
Mm.
Um, I've got I've gotten used to having evenings off, which is really nice because I used to work a full-time job, teach a couple of nights a week, go to knit night one night a week. I think it was literally only Tuesday often that I might not have anything happening. So
Boy.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it just slowed my life down, and I'm liking it. So
Oh, you mentioned Neat Night. I didn't even know
mm-hmm,
that was like,
mm,
one of the things you did. But one of the things on your bio is fiber artist. Is that part of
mm-hmm.
the knitting thing?
Yeah, it is. I've graduated from NSCAD with an interdisciplinary bachelor's of fine arts. But when I was at NSCAD, I mostly concentrated on textiles and fashion design. I kind of was thinking about it in terms of becoming like a dance costume designer, and things like
Ah.
that. But I ended up taking courses through the summer just so I could maintain my student loan funding. And one of my only options, my first summer, was weaving, like introduction to weaving.
Mm-hmm.
And I fell in love with that. It's amazing. It's got so many challenging things about it. It's got so much math, and it's also it's incredibly repetitive when you're setting up a loom. You have to thread everything twice through all the different like slots and heddles and everything, and then there's something really soothing about the repetitive motions of a lot of textile work that I really enjoy. It's really meditative for me. So I loved weaving because once I had the loom set up, you could just weave for hours, just like pushing the pedals and moving the shuttle back and forth.
Mm.
And then I learned how to spin my own yarn.
Oh.
And yeah, so then using drop spindles, and then I was like, well, this is slow. I need a spinning wheel. So I learned how to use a spinning wheel. Um,
What's the difference between the two? Which one? You know what? So the only, I guess, idea or education I
mhm,
have of all these things I'm mentioning is from,
mhm.
I think, Sleeping Beauty,
Yeah.
where they had all the things in the town like taken away
Yes, yes,
because
yes.
she was
So,
gonna prick her finger if she used it and would
mhm.
whatever.
Yeah, so that's actually, yeah, that's a lot. Well, that's mostly what people picture when I say I have a spinning wheel. They think about
Right,
Sleeping Beauty and that whole story and that prophecy that she was going to prick her finger and die.
right.
And yeah, honestly, there's lots of really interesting fairy tales and mythology around spinning because it's something that people have been doing for millennia. People used to make cord or yarn by rolling fibers together on their thighs and then wrapping it around a stick to hold it in its shape. And then
Oh.
that graduated to using a stick with a weight on it to do the twisting for them. So that was a little faster. And then they figured out a system of wheels and pulleys so that they could treadle with their feet, spin a wheel, and then twist the fiber together. So, and I just find it
Oh.
fascinating. I don't, sometimes I find it just incredibly compelling, like thinking about how the first person who did that thought to do that. I think it's
Right.
just amazing. And then they started using the threads that they made to make clothes, and to make fishing nets, and then to make sails so that their boats could sail, like go farther and use the wind instead of people power. It's like, I feel like uh, textiles are kind of almost the one of the pillars of civilization across the world. It's amazing. Like wherever you go, there are beautiful, like beautiful textiles. Like people make beautiful cloth that is very meaningful for them,
Mm.
and then use it to adorn their bodies and their livestock and decorate their homes, and sail across oceans. It's really
Yeah.
cool.
You should teach a class. You're so passionate about it.
I have taught classes. I've taught at the Nova Scotia Centre for Craft and Design a few times,
There you
and
go.
yeah, yeah,
And then, so fat activism, how did that
yeah.
begin for you and what does that mean to you?
All right. Well, the fact of the matter is that I live in a fat body, and I always have. And my mother took me to Weight Watchers for the first time with her when I was 10. And I feel like that can radicalize a person pretty quickly.
Right.
Because at the age of 10, I was a tomboy. I was wearing overalls and t-shirts and riding my bike everywhere and climbing trees and building forts in the forest. And my body did all the things that I wanted it to do, except apparently it didn't look right. Right. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, it didn't look like my friends' bodies, or it didn't, my mom also, I think, is a plus size woman, and but was, I think, thinner before she had children, and so I think she kind of felt bad about her body and thought I would feel bad about my body.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I had a lot of diets and things imposed on me as I was growing up, and I rebelled, and like I simultaneously wanted to please my mother and be a good kid, uh, but also I had no control like over that. Right, I was a kid. Uh, yeah, so looking back on that, like I feel like fat activism for me has just been about trying to make a space in the world for me and other like people who are shaped like me to exist in. Um, I have a lot of confidence. I feel like for the most part, that kind of toxic kind of diet culture was really more about my mother and less about me. And um, I feel like I came out of that relatively unscathed, because through it all, my body still did all the things that I wanted my body to do. Like it took that dance class. I can play the piano. I was still racing around on my bike. I was still like, it was still doing all the things that I wanted it to do. Right.
Mm.
I was less concerned about how it looked, because frankly, it didn't look how I wanted it to anyway, because I was pretty convinced when I was a kid that I was going to grow up to look like my dad. So when female puberty hit, it was kind of a shock to me. So I think I probably had a little bit of dissociation from my body as well. But one of the things that belly dance did for me, and it all kind of ties together, frankly, belly dance really helped me like learn about more about my body, the things I could use my body for, and the beautiful art that I could make with my body. Um,
Mm.
and also, being an artist myself, I took a lot of drawing classes. I drew a lot of naked people, and I never thought that they were ugly or awful because they weren't perfectly skinny. In fact, they were much more interesting to draw if they weren't like rail thin. Like one of my favorite models when I was doing my college degree was a 40-year-old woman who had breastfed multiple babies, had wide hips, had loose skin in her belly, and she was so good to draw.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that's another thing that I used to do. Is I used to do a lot of nude modeling because I had the experience as uh, an artist drawing a nude model. I had some experience as a dancer and knew how to move my body, and I knew that I could be interesting to draw. And yeah, I actually was a really popular model at NSCAD for quite a few years in the 90s and early 2000s.
Oh.
It was part of my hustle. Um, and that's also part of my activism. It's just fat bodies exist. They deserve to exist. There is nothing inherently immoral about being fat. Fat people deserve to have the same rights and comforts as everybody else. It's not contingent on if you're healthy fat, because that's also a thing. It's not contingent on you attempting to lose weight. It's I think all of my activism in my entire life has just been about wanting to be free to be myself and to have other people be free to be themselves, because we put a lot of pressure on each other. So now what that means for fat activism is that because I have a lot of body confidence, I'm going to be who I want to be, do what I want to do. And a lot of people who look like me don't have that kind of confidence. So I just go out there, and I feel like I'm going to go out, I'm going to do the things that I want to do. I'm going to be who I am, and I'm going to make a space for myself in the world. And sometimes it's just simply by existing. Sometimes I'm speaking up. So because, for instance, like, there's a lot of public spaces that aren't designed for accessibility, and that's accessibility for fat people as well. Like putting art, like having holding a concert and only having chairs with arms on them is a problem. You know, sometimes in many of the workplaces I've been in, they're uncomfortable for me, sometimes physically painful. So now I speak up about things like that because I'm older, I have a lot of confidence, I have agency, and I have the privilege of security now. And so I can use my voice to make things better for myself and for other fat people. So, yeah, so when I'm curating my online spaces, for instance, it's very anti-diet culture. Riots, not diets. I try and practice. I don't let people talk poorly about their bodies around me, because it's not good for my mental health, and it's definitely not good for theirs. Fat activism also wove itself into my belly dance teaching. I am not what people expect when they walk into a belly dance class. They don't expect that. But what I did attract as a belly dance teacher were people who had differently shaped bodies. I had men in my class and non-binary people in my class. I had women who were plus sized, women who were, skinny, women who, didn't like a lot of things about themselves. So me being so comfortable and demonstrating that comfort, I think frees a lot of people to feel that about themselves as well. So yeah. I'm going to use all the tools at my disposal in every aspect of my life to show how I want to be free. So
no, that's great. I don't even know if I think it's Fat Life Drawing. Do you know of this?
No.
So I think it's on Instagram, and what it basically is you kind of sign up, and it's every Sunday or every other Sunday you can draw people with different body sizes. And what I like they do is, so they actually donate the funds they raise to charity. So charities like I can't remember the name now, but one of the charities actually helps donate like pads and tampons and things like this. Yeah, you should check it out.
I should. Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Okay, so I think the next set kind of blend into each other. With you saying you grew up wanting to, like, you grew up thinking you'd look like your dad when you're grown. So that's like, the gender fluid thing, queer, bisexual, and sex positive. They kind of, in a
Yeah.
way, go together. Do you want to talk about all those?
Sure. Yeah, so I thought, yeah, so as I said before, puberty was a hard time for me. I grew breasts really early. I think I had to wear my first bra when I was maybe 9. And that kind of triggered for me a period, well, it lasted for a good long time, where I would only dress in jeans and plaid shirts that kind of hid my body. And I was always really excited when I got mistaken for a boy. It was great. And then I don't know, it from like, yeah, but then I also then got I don't know, there's just always been, my life is just very confusing. It's just always been very confusing. Yeah, I have never felt like I fit anywhere. I didn't have, because I'm 48, so that was when this was happening. It was like like 70s, early 80s, and I just didn't have words or vocabulary for even concepts around this, because I grew up in such a rural area. And I don't know. I am grateful, at least, that my parents kind of let me be me for the most part. I still got forced into dresses for, like, to go to Kingdom Hall, and for picture
Oh,
day.
like that's Jehovah's Witness, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that was another phase.
I'm not a fan.
I'm not a fan either.
Okay. No, so okay, so this is, anyway, I had a friend, we're really close, and they're Jehovah's Witness, and that's not like, it's not because they come to your door and knock. That's frustrating, but it's fine, whatever. So, and I don't know if it was just the one in Nigeria or if it's all of the Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide, but they have this thing where you have a card where you can't take blood for some fucking reason. Anyway, so this lady, like, she had, so my friend's mom had complications during, like, childbirth, and all she needed was just to get blood. They just take blood transfusion and all be fine and you'll be okay and blah blah blah. No, well, at a point she was okay, she was going to take it, but then the witnesses came and, like, they gave her, like, this talk, and she was like, no, you can't take blood because in the Bible, whatever. Anyway, she died. And, like, all she had to do was take blood. So I'm not, like, a fan.
Yeah.
I'm just not a fan.
Yeah, I'm not a super fan either. I am not a Jehovah's Witness.
Okay, so you grew up there, okay,
Yeah.
and then you would have to dress it. Okay.
Yeah,
Alright.
yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Like, different gender expression has just kind of moved through my life like a sine wave. Like, it's just, sometimes I express myself in more masculine ways, sometimes in more feminine ways. When I started belly dancing, that really helped me embrace, I think, feminine strength and power at that time. And but now I think, for years I've always thought of me belly dancing as, like, kind of almost like doing drag. Yeah, so it's what RuPaul says, we're all born naked, the rest is drag. I think that is really applicable. So yeah, most of the time my gender expression is pretty neutral. I'm kind of a jeans and t-shirts and plaid shirts kind of person, no matter what. And sometimes, again, it's all twisted up with fat activism, because and gender expression, again, because as a fat person, I don't have a lot of choices in the clothes I get to wear, in many ways. There's only a few stores that I can shop at that have clothes that fit my body type, and a lot of fat women especially, like people with fat female bodies, are, to be acceptable, you have to be ultra feminine, right? You have
Oh.
to, like, so yeah, it's been a struggle. The pandemic was hard for me last year because last summer Reitman's had to go into, I think, receivership, or like they were going to have to close either, they were going to have to close some of their stores. And
Mm.
Reitman's is the parent company that has a couple of plus size stores attached to it, like Pennington's and a Chanel. So I was freaking out because if I lose those stores, I have nowhere to buy clothes to cover my body, never mind express my personal style. You know, I
Mm.
posted about my dismay at this potentially happening, and I had all of my, like, my straight size friends saying things like, "Oh, but I hear there's this wonderful boutique in Bedford." And I'm just like, that is one independent store, and I am literally worried about having to maybe make my own underwear right now because I won't have anywhere to buy it.
Mm.
Um, so I was like having to check people's privilege there. I was like, listen, you can go to the mall and you've got 50 stores you can go shop in. I go to the mall, I've got one. If that one store goes away,
Mm.
what am I doing? Right?
Right, right,
Um,
right.
so yeah, yeah. So I had some really hard gender stuff to deal with last year
Mm.
because I think what upsets me the most throughout my life is when my choices are being taken away from me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so when I'm not free to be myself, and in many ways, that was, I felt like it was being taken away from me. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, so the way my brain rebelled at that was to really send me into uh, like a very much a non-binary gender expression, or even almost masculine gender expression, for quite a few months. I
Mm.
remember one morning, I think I can't remember. I was going to be going to a meeting and I was like, oh, maybe I'll put on a little makeup this morning. I'm going to be seeing people in person and they will see my eyes and stuff like that. So I was like, so I darkened up my eyebrows a little bit. And then I put mascara on one eye, and then I looked up into the mirror and I was like, oh God, no, no, no,
Mm.
no. And then I had to wash it all off because I was like,
Mm.
that's not me today. So,
Mm.
yeah, I was actually really impressed. Like recently, I wore a dress. I felt like wearing a dress, so I wore a dress. So, yeah, yeah, it, yeah. So, gender fluid, I guess, is the term that I think best describes how, like, my state of being right now.
Mm.
Um, Maybe if I'd had, more words and options and concepts when I was a teenager, I might have done some medical transitioning. But at this late stage, I've got lots of other things going on with my body that I think would make it not great.
Mm.
And I've done a lot of work over the past couple of decades using things like belly dance and advocacy and, um, to get like to embody in myself, right? So,
Mm.
um, yeah, and there's a lot about my body I really appreciate, and yeah, so
No,
yeah.
that kind of that's excuse me, that sums it all up. So he still comes back to the fat axism. I'm
Hmm.
gonna let you go with this one question though.
Hmm.
Um, someone is gonna say one of the, I guess, replies or responses that
Hmm.
people always give, or usually some of the
Hmm.
time give for someone like being fat positive is that it's not healthy,
Yeah.
right? Like, what do you say to that?
Well, how healthy are they? But you can't judge somebody's health by looking at them. I mean, looking at me, I'm fat, but you know what? I have excellent blood pressure. My cholesterol is perfect. I am incredibly healthy. But I'm still fat, and I'm going to stay that way just because I have another condition that causes fat on my body. And again, health is not necessary for a human being to be valued. There are so many thin people out there who are much less healthy than I am, but their bodies are deemed socially acceptable. So their health is never in question. Their health is not tied to their value in society. Why should a fat person's health be tied to the value in society?
One of
So,
the oh sorry, before you continue, I'll just add this. Something just came to my mind. I had a discussion with a friend some time back, and they couldn't have a procedure done because they were not the right BMI. So if they had, and this is met like the doctor, like from the doctor, whatever, for us to do this surgery or whatever procedure, you have to be in this BMI.
yeah, that's complete bullshit. BMI was invented 100 or more years ago by an like somebody in insurance, to judge how healthy a population might be. And not only the population, it was based on men, and it was based on white men. It is racist, it's sexist, and completely not based in science. And I can't believe doctors are still using it right now. I don't let a doctor mention BMI to me. So it has no basis in medical science.
Wow.
It's just literally an actuarial table for insurance purposes. That's what it's for. It's so that, you can be judged easily and possibly charged more money to buy insurance. So it's BMI, it's complete crap. Medical fat phobia is a huge issue that kills fat people. It's like we're often treated so poorly by medical professionals that we don't seek out help. We have a lot of medical trauma around that. And if you're fat and black, I don't know how you could even go forward and trust the medical system at all. So yeah, I have privilege because of my skin color, but I still get treated really, really poorly by most of the medical profession. I've been denied medical care because of my weight. I've had to start using tools like, so if I'm seeing a doctor and they won't do a certain test on me, I ask them to please note that in my chart that they have made the decision not to send me for that test. I need them to record that. And that usually makes them, do that. Other tools that I use with medical professionals that I've learned, I ask them, so if they tell me that I have to lose weight, I'm just like, okay, I didn't come in here about my weight. I came in here because I've got plantar fasciitis from walking in secondhand shoes 45 minutes a day to my job because there's a bus strike. I didn't have a problem before I had to walk 45 minutes each way in the only shoes that I could afford. So close your eyes, and now think of me again, except I'm skinny. What treatment would you offer a thin person who came to you with this problem? And now I want you to give that to me, because my weight is not the issue here. My weight is your issue. It's not mine. So, but it's just shitty that you have to advocate so hard for yourself with a profession that's supposed to care for you. So, yeah.
Man, Elinor, thank you so much for sharing. And I think we should have just one conversation where we're talking about like this medical, because it was mind blowing when my friend told me. I was like, wait, so you're supposed to have this surgery, but you can't have it because you have to be a certain weight to have it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Okay, like I have a soapbox so high to stand on for this. Like, you have no idea. I have a friend who tried for years to lose weight so she could get breast reduction surgery in Nova Scotia, because you had to be a certain BMI before they would remove any breast tissue, and which is again bullshit. So she had so she was a curvy woman. She would lose weight, and then she'd lose a little bit of belly, and that was part of the support for her really large breasts. And then as soon as she lost enough weight to lose that support, her breasts would start really hurting her back, and they would hurt her back so much that she couldn't exercise anymore, and she would gain the weight back. She eventually moved to Alberta, where they did not have a BMI requirement for breast reduction surgery. It's ridiculous, because if they'd given her breast reduction surgery, I bet she would have been much more able to, get on a treadmill and lose the weight, right? But yeah, it's just it's sexist and fat phobic and racist, and there's so many things wrong with BMI. We could probably there are whole shows about it. There's a podcast that I listen to called Maintenance Phase that's all about kind of the health and wellness and diet industry. It kind of debunks a lot of those kind of myths. It's really fantastic. So
I'll check it out.
Yeah.
All right. Luna, thank you so much for coming to the sanctuary, and I can't wait to have you back.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. This has been a really fun conversation. You ask really interesting questions.